This is our agenda for the next hour. We will begin by sharing some notes of introduction before covering some key concepts and information about the Innovation Fund. We will also spend time covering essential details to include in your application, and we will then cover the eligibility criteria for the fund, what the application process is like, and also what the support from GSMA encompasses as well. At the end of the webinar, as I said before, you'll have the chance to ask the panel any questions that you have in your mind, so do feel free to make full use of the chat function there. Okay, and I would now like to hand over to Kimberly. So Kimberly, you have the floor. Thank you.
Hi, Jane. Thanks very much, and hi everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Kimberly, and I lead the Mobile for Humanitarian Innovation program here at the GSMA. So I'm going to give you a bit of background on the GSMA, on Mobile for Development, and also on our program. So the GSMA is the global membership organization that brings together and unifies the mobile ecosystem. So we bring together mobile operators and other organizations in adjacent industries to unlock the full power of connectivity. And our industry was the first to commit to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And within GSMA, you have the Mobile for Development team. Next slide, please. That brings together the mobile industry and a diverse range of international partners to reduce inequalities, tackle humanitarian and development issues. So across our Mobile for Development programs, we have expertise that drive financial inclusion, that drive digital inclusion, humanitarian response in the case of our team that we'll share more about today, and also reduce climate impacts. And we focus on key themes such as gender and local entrepreneurship. So our programs are very unique in that we sit at the intersection of the mobile ecosystem and also many different types of partners and humanitarian and development partners. And our expertise in specific markets, in specific contexts, really allows us to build unique partnerships and inform, in our case, humanitarian preparedness, response, and recovery. And we really see an increasing interest of the mobile industry to grow its engagement and its investment in partnerships and solutions that will deliver a strong digital humanitarian future. One example is that the GSMA launched a Humanitarian Connectivity Charter some years ago. That's an initiative that strengthens the resilience, preparedness, and response capability of connectivity systems around the world. And we have 160 GSMA members, mobile operators, who have signed that Humanitarian Connectivity Charter. So the last thing I'll cover on my final slide is a bit about our program, the Mobile for Humanitarian Innovation program that Jenny mentioned is funded by the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. Our mission is to accelerate the delivery and the impact of digital humanitarian assistance. And so we help to improve access to and use of life-enhancing mobile-enabled services during humanitarian preparedness, response, and also recovery. And we know, and I'm sure many of you on the call know, that in times of crisis, mobile connectivity is really a lifeline for people who are affected. So it enables people to seek and share information, to communicate with loved ones, but also increasingly as a tool to receive humanitarian assistance and crucial information. Through our program, we've reached over 10 million people to date with improved access to and use of life-enhancing mobile-enabled services. And we do that through investing in innovation, which is the focus of our discussion today. We do that through building partnerships between mobile network operators and humanitarian partners to deliver digital humanitarian projects and programs. We do advocacy to build the right enabling environment for digital humanitarian services and solutions to thrive. And we also build a research agenda to inform the future of digital humanitarian response. So we look more with you today about the opportunity of the Innovation Fund, your questions, and thank you very much for joining us. And I will hand over to Guy. I think there you go.
Yeah, thanks, Kimberly. Still not used to taking the mute button, even though we've been working on Teams for a while. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Good to see some familiar names in the chat, and great to have so many people who we've yet to meet. My name is Guy Pegram, and I'm the Senior Market Engagement Manager for the Mobile Humanitarian Innovation Fund. And I thought today, before we get into the nuts and bolts about what we're looking for the upcoming round, the Innovation Fund for Anticipatory Humanitarian Action, I'll give a little bit of background information on some of the previous GSMA Innovation Funds that we've round to give a bit of a flavour of what we support, what we've supported in the past, and what we're looking to do moving forward. So as you can see here, in the boxes on the left-hand side, there's a mixture of the different funds that we have supported throughout the GSMA Mobile for Development journey. On the top, we have disaster response, complex emergencies and forced displacement, and long-term sustainability and scalability. So these are all previous Mobile for Humanitarian Innovation Fund rounds that we have run in the past. And since 2017, the M4H programme has provided more than 20 Innovation Fund grants through these 3 rounds, totalling over £6 million to projects implemented across 27 countries that support new innovations targeting humanitarian challenges. And as mentioned, they focused on disaster response, which was our very first round. And then we moved on to our second round, which was forced displacement and complex emergencies, and more recently, long-term sustainability and scalability. And across the bottom, you can see some of the other Innovation Fund rounds that we have run that are not humanitarian focused, but have a slightly different focus, but on a more broader development angle. So we have mobile internet adoption and digital inclusion, assistive tech, digital urban services, climate resilience and adaptation. And now we move on to our most recent one, which is the Anticipatory Humanitarian Action Round. And you can see here that this is the kind of broad scale of where we have supported our Humanitarian Innovation Fund grants throughout our previous 3 rounds. So it gives you an idea of globally where we have focused. As you can see there, we have a lot of focus in Sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia, but also we've done some work in the Caribbean, Central America as well. Looking ahead for the new round, we are open to applications with projects in Africa, the Middle East, South Asia, Southeast Asia, Pacific, the Caribbean, and Latin America. There is a list on the terms and conditions document on the fund's website for a full list of countries that are excluded from the fund. But yeah, we won't go into full detail about every country that is excluded or we can't apply, but that is available on our terms and conditions. But broadly, we support a large geographical range of projects. So that was it from me. Just a bit of a short introduction into the previous rounds that we supported, and I'm going to hand over to Jenny, who will go into the key concepts and eligibility for this next round. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you so much, Guy. And hi there, everyone. I'm Jenny Thornton, and I am the Market Engagement Manager, working very closely with Guy and Kimberly in the Mobile for Humanitarian Innovation team. So before we talk specifically about the new fund that we have, we're going to spend a few moments on some key concepts in the humanitarian innovation space, and that will really help to illustrate how grant-funded projects will contribute to humanitarian action. Okay, so first of all, what do we understand as the meaning of humanitarian aid? Humanitarian aid is aid and action that is designed to save lives, alleviate suffering, and maintain and protect human dignity during and in the aftermath of emergencies. And some key humanitarian principles include humanity, the fact that we must protect life and health and ensure and respect dignity at all times. Neutrality, humanitarian actors must not take sides in hostilities. Impartiality, need must be the leading priority when taking humanitarian action, not being influenced by factors such as nationality, race, gender, religion, etc. And independence. Humanitarian action must be independent from other objectives, whether they be political, economic, or military. Now I want to clarify what we mean by the terms that constitute this funding opportunity. So by innovation, we mean the application of a new idea that adds value. And by humanitarian innovation, we mean an iterative process that pinpoints, adjusts, and diffuses ideas and technologies that will improve humanitarian action. Now, the innovation journey is very usefully mapped out here on this slide, and we're using a diagram that was produced in the Humanitarian Innovation Guide developed by ELRA. The guide is designed to provide targeted support to individuals and organisations who are attempting to develop innovative solutions to the challenges facing humanitarian assistance, resulting in a more effective humanitarian response. So this guide was written for two audiences in mind. First of all, the humanitarian practitioners who are seeking to develop a new approach to their work and want to apply an innovation lens to solving problems. And secondly, social entrepreneurs from outside the sector who have identified an opportunity to engage with the humanitarian sector, but need a humanitarian framework to help contextualise their innovation plans. And I'm sure we have representatives from both of those groups on the call today. And the innovation journey shown here shows the essential stages of innovation development, acknowledging that a search for existing solutions may even result in either an adaptation of existing technology or the invention of a new solution as well. Furthermore, it indicates that a pilot of an innovation may actually lead back to the adaptation or the reinvention in order to achieve a successful pilot. So we have developed this slide now, still using that same diagram, to encourage you to use this information about the innovation journey map to understand where your innovation is in the process and to check whether your project has indeed followed this route and if any of the steps have been missed. I think this is also a very good time to highlight that the fund cannot support a few things. First of all, the fund cannot support the deployment of solutions which are already proven and do not include an innovative approach. However, innovative adaptation to existing solutions will be considered. Secondly, the development or prototyping of any new hardware solutions cannot be supported by the fund. And thirdly, neither can projects that focus solely on products or solutions for high-end devices not associated with low-income users, for obvious reasons. So if you would like to check on the full details of this, please go to page 2 of the Terms and Conditions PDF that can be found at the bottom of the application webpage. Okay, so we will now look more closely at the Innovation Fund for Anticipatory Humanitarian Action. So what do we mean by anticipatory action? Well, we understand it as the acting ahead of predicted hazardous events to prevent or reduce acute humanitarian impacts before they fully unfold. And because of the nature of this action, we are expecting to see quite a range of solutions, which may include, but won't necessarily be limited to, pre-positioning and early deployment activities, early action, preparedness and resilience building, dissemination of early warning messages, and systems that will enhance communication. Graph is taken from the Centre for Humanitarian Data, and I think it really helps us to understand the real potential of anticipatory action. Anticipatory action often follows on from early warning systems by utilising the forecasting or warning information that is being released. Anticipatory action then occurs prior to the impact of a crisis or extreme event in order to minimise negative impacts, which you can clearly see in the graph. And the humanitarian sector is increasingly shifting towards anticipatory action because of its potential to lessen or even avoid the impacts overall. So by anticipating rather than reacting to an extreme event, more lives can be saved, responses can be more cost efficient, and human safety and dignity can be better protected as well. So now, to bring the concept of anticipatory humanitarian action to life, we have provided here a few illustrative examples of different types of anticipatory humanitarian action, and I invite you to read them through and have a little look at these examples. Again, it's important to mention that the fund is by no means limited to receiving applications very tightly aligned to these examples. We're just sharing them with you now to demonstrate the different types of disaster and crises that anticipatory humanitarian action can apply to, as well as the different geographical contexts, or even how technology could be adapted to make humanitarian responses more inclusive. So I'll just give you a moment to finish reading that slide, because I know there's quite a lot of text there. Okay, so next up, I'm going to share with you our short video that we developed for the Innovation Fund, and it really encapsulates all of the key criteria for the fund. So I'll play that now for you to enjoy. Thank you. Okay, so that was our video for the Innovation Fund. And now we're going to get straight into it, and we're going to talk about what we expect to see from your application to the fund. Well, first of all, we really want to see that you have a strong sense of who your user base will be, and that you understand the composite of that user base very well. We want you to provide a summary of the humanitarian problem or challenge that you're seeking to address. And we also want to understand how your innovation is going to be using either mobile or digital technology as a core component of that innovation. We need to also hear what the ideal outcome of your solution is and how this relates to a contribution to society as well. When we get down to the financial elements, we want to see that you have match funding available, and this has to be at least 25% of the grant that you are requesting from the GSMA Innovation Fund. We also want to see that you have a really good awareness of your project's risks, or perhaps even some potential unintended consequences that you see on the horizon and how you intend to mitigate them. And then we also are looking to see what makes your solution unique, what makes it different from competitors. And the application gives you lots of space to map all of these elements out and to answer all of these questions. Okay, and now we will highlight some of the support that is on offer from the GSMA through the Innovation Fund, as well as some of the eligibility criteria. So first of all, we take great pride in providing a whole suite of support for our grantees, in addition to the financial funding, which ranges from £100,000 up to £250,000 for a project life cycle of between 15 and 18 months. We also offer learning exchange opportunities. Sometimes this can be with other grantees, and we'll also provide networking opportunities with other GSMA partners. Monitoring and evaluation support will be provided to help evidence, measure, and promote the impact of your product. We're also here to facilitate relationships with mobile network operators, and we will create the opportunity to increase visibility and raise your project's profile to potential further investors and partners through our GSMA publications, case studies, social media, and some of our events as well. So once the successful grantees are selected, we will provide all of the support in order to give your innovation the very best chance at success and to also maximise awareness and visibility of your work in a broad way. Okay, so now I will talk about some of our key criteria. So the criteria includes ensuring that your organisation is either a not-for-profit or a for-profit organisation. If it is the latter, you must be either a startup, an SME, or a social enterprise and have no more than 250 employees. Your project absolutely must be leveraging digital technology, and you should be able to demonstrate the sustainability and also the scalability potential of your innovation. And as I mentioned before, you must also be aware of who your active users will be. So now we will talk a bit about the match contributions. It's very important that every project shows other identified financial support in the form of match funding contributions. And this must be at least 25% for a grant amount of between £100,000 and £150,000. And that rises to 50% match funding contributions for a grant amount of between £150,000 and £250,000. Match contributions can be either financial or in kind, although please note if you are opting for in kind contributions, the in-kind match funding is limited to 50% of the total required match amount. So next we're going to talk about what we're strongly encouraging which applicants we're strongly encouraging to apply. So whilst not criteria, we really want to encourage women-led organisations to apply, as well as organisations who have a strong local presence in the area they are seeking to do their project. And we also want those who can demonstrate a clear link between their solution and an improvement in the resilience and adaptive capacity of vulnerable communities. And we also want to encourage those who have not received FCDO funding in the past through the GSMA. Okay, and this is my last slide here. And what I'm going to do is just share some key dates for you to be aware of with regards to the Innovation Fund. So as we all know, applications are now open, and they will close in just under 6 weeks' time on Thursday, the 19th of January. Those who are shortlisted after that date will progress on to the full proposal stage, and they will hear from the GSMA in 4 to 5 weeks' time after that 19th of January closing date. And their full proposal is required to be submitted to the GSMA by the 12th of May next year. Now, there is going to be a lot of support and feedback coming from the GSMA to help shortlisted applicants with that process. And in addition to all of that, the GSMA will also be conducting a due diligence assessment of shortlisted applicants, and also a field visit where possible and where appropriate for the shortlisted applicants. Altogether, we anticipate that projects will be commencing in October 2023, and a public announcement will be made at that time too, to celebrate the successful projects who are going to be awarded funding. So that kind of projects the time frame out over the next year or so. Okay, so I hope that information that we've shared today is very useful, and we would now like to open up for questions. So as a reminder, please do write out your questions in the chat panel, and I'm going to hand over to Guy, who is going to lead the Q&A for us now. So thank you, Guy. Over to you.
Thank you, Jenny, and thanks all for the questions that have been coming through the chat. There's a couple that we've responded to directly through the chat function, but there are also some that we thought would be better to share more broadly with the full group. So I'll go through a list of some of those that have come through. I think the first one that we were going to ask was around was from Gaurav on how many projects are intended to be awarded this time, and will there be allocations intended to specific crisis or geography? And the answer to that is that overall, once we've gone through the various applications and gone through all of the various phases, we will look to support around 8 projects per round, 8 to 9 projects per round, as we have done in the past with our previous Innovation Fund rounds. We don't have a specific crises or geographies that we're looking to support. We are open to working in several different contexts, so long as they are in a humanitarian context and the area is relevant and the innovation is appropriate. So we're not looking at specific crises. We're open to supporting crises or geographies across the globe. Next question, which I thought would be good to share with everyone as well, was from Simon. So thank you, Simon. Question was, who will be judging / scoring the criteria for granting? Will there be a long and short list? So the one for that one is that our internal team at the GSMA, we will be responsible for reviewing applications and shortlisting candidates. The shortlisted candidates will then be asked to provide a more detailed proposal. And then upon review of that detailed proposal, we will then go into a fund panel with a mixture of experts in the space providing their opinion. And from there, the successful candidates will be selected. So a few phases to go before we get to that phase, but that is the short answer to how the criteria will be judged. There was also another question from Simon as well on our partnership submissions allowed. So we are looking for one lead applicant to apply for funding, and the application will come through one lead applicant. However, we do actively encourage organisations to have established partnerships with other organisations. That's a really key metric that we'd like to measure and something that we really find important during submissions. So organisations that can demonstrate successful partnerships, they will be looked upon favourably. So that's a good point, and thank you, Simon. Question from around, yes, so question about innovation. If the solution already exists in the market, but we have not used something similar yet, and also the solution needs to add new features and get adjusted to the organisation, would this be considered an innovation for you and for eligible funding? Good question. And I think, yes, if the innovation in question is being adapted to a humanitarian context, then we would consider this as innovation, as it is being adopted in a new context. We're not, if it's purely kind of repetitive, then that would not be something we would look to support. But if it's being adapted to a new context and a new humanitarian context, then yes, we would consider that as innovation. We have quite a few questions around match funding. I'm just going through a couple of these now. Question around match contribution. Does it have to be a direct contribution only to this project from another source, or can it be the cost of human resources working on the project for the number of hours indicated? So match would have to be something that would come from another source. Human resources working on the project can be covered under match, but that would have to be provided by an additional source there. I think there's been quite a few questions on match there, so I think a few of these questions we will follow up on our FAQ page and also respond to a couple of these as well, because I think there's quite a lot on match funding. We might not have the chance to get through all of those in this session. So I'll make sure that the questions that have been answered on match, they are updated on the FAQ page. Looking at some more here. Does that mean that October 2023 is actual grant announcement and payment? So if the successful organisation upon the fund panel is awarded, then October 23 would be it would be the actual grant announcement and payment. That would be once the contract has been executed, and that is when the official project will be started and it will be announced. So yeah, October 23 is grant announcement and payment. Looking at some other questions here. Question on, lots coming through on match funding. So question from Alex here. In the application, it asks for information on other FCDO/UK aid funds received. Is this just for GSMA funds or any wider FCDO projects activities? This is for wider FCDO projects and activities. It's not just GSMA funds. We're interested in looking at your application. Yeah, we're interested in knowing more about full kind of funding history, regardless of it being GSMA. So yes, any other FCDO or UK aid funds received, we would want to know that in the application. A question from Alex. Will there be the opportunity between the two application phases to reach out to other donors for match funding, saying that this is potential match funding? Good question there. I think upon the proposal phase and when we get to the fund panel, we would have match funding. It would have to be confirmed rather than being in the potential side. So I think upon application in this phase, if you have potential donor funding, that is something that can be identified as match. But later on, we would need to have that confirmed rather than it being potential, because it would, we would need to see that that funding is confirmed rather than pending or being applied. Question on, quite a few coming through on match funding. So question on from Justin here, can a startup based in Switzerland apply to this fund? If not, how about a consortium that combines a local NGO in the Philippines with a Swiss startup? So we've had applications in the past that have bases in places such as Switzerland or in the UK or elsewhere. So long as the local office and project is taking place elsewhere in a country that's eligible, then that's something that we would be able to accept. So the kind of head base can be based in a country such as Switzerland, but as long as the project is taking place in the in a country that's on the list available on the startups, and that's fine. So that is something that we would be able to support. Question around, as there's only one organisation that will be funded in the case of a consortium, do you have any particular expectations regarding the form of collaboration between the organisations? We don't have any particular expectations there. I think if you're able to demonstrate how the organisations within that consortium are working closely together, what each of the organisations is adding and how they'll benefit your innovation and your project, then that should be fine for the application phase. There's no real kind of particular expectations regarding that, but as long as you can demonstrate what each of the organisations is doing and why they're benefiting the project, then that should be fine. Question, in the first phase of the innovation has been passed in 2023, could we request this fund for the next phase, year 2024, to improve the solution on phase 2 or to test solution in different context countries? So this round that we're running will, as we've said, will start up in October 2023, and projects will look to run between 15 to 18 months. We will not be running the exact same fund again. The idea is that as we progress with the fund, we will look to run rounds that have a slightly different element to each of the different funds so that we can kind of encompass a broader humanitarian scope. That may mean that some projects that are run in this round may be similar to the next round, but we'd have to deal with them on a kind of case-by-case basis. So this round will be running for one round only. There are expectations for future rounds that may look similar, but at this stage we're not sure of what those rounds will be. So I think that's more of a case of seeing what the next round is when we launch that and whether an innovation would be appropriate for additional funding beyond that. I think it's probably the answer I can give at this stage. Question here around MNOs. So are consortia applications with MNOs more favourably reviewed? As you'll see as part of the application phase, demonstrating partnerships or conversations or links with mobile operators is very, very important for our for the applications and for these projects. As the GSMA, we are extremely keen and excited to see collaborations that directly work with mobile operators. So I would encourage anyone who's had those conversations with operators or beginning to build partnerships with operators to make sure that that is made very, very aware in the applications, because those are the types of organizations that will be looked favorably and we will be looking to support. So yes, would fully encourage that mentioning of partnerships with operators is included in the application phase. Country about multiple locations. So is there a funding limitation in this case, or we are limited to apply for only 250,000 for different locations? So we need there to be focus rather than, it may be that an innovation that is being funded will be kind of looking at going for a kind of broader scale up and looking at multiple countries. However, as part of this project, we'll be looking for specific countries to be included as part of the scope of this project, rather than it saying we are looking for this innovation to be used in a global multiple context. There will need to be specific countries referenced as part of this that are being used. It may be that part of the scale-up journey is for a more global remit, but as part of this application, there will need to be a country focus that's part of this application. Question: in countries where the humanitarian crisis is also political, do you have specific expectations in terms of support or inclusion of local authorities, for example? We don't really have any specific expectations. I think if there is a project that works closely with government or with local authorities, I think what we would look to be demonstrated in the application is that there is kind of a consistent plan and engagement with those local authorities and a way of managing those difficult relationships. So I think that's what we would be looking for in an application, is just to make sure that there is a handle on those organizations, there's a plan and intentions for those partners being used for the project. I think so as long as you can explain how you're working with those political groups or those local authorities, then that would be great. We don't really have any specific expectations in terms of support. We encourage, if it's beneficial to the project, we do encourage working with local authorities. I think that's an important part of what we're looking to support. So as long as you can demonstrate that that is working and that there's a strong partnership there, then we encourage you to do so. So there's a question here around a technology without the use of mobile technology. Mobile technology is at the forefront of this innovation fund. So solutions that are not demonstrating mobile capacity or digital capacity as part of this project would not be looked at. We would not look to support those projects, given who we are as the GSMA and what we're looking to support as part of kind of telecoms and digital and mobile. That would need to be at the forefront of the innovation. So anything that is an innovation that doesn't have mobile at the forefront will be, we would not be able to support that. Another question on consortium. Applying as a consortium, as long as there is a lead applicant there, then applying as a consortium, that is acceptable as long as there is one lead applicant and then the other partners in the consortium are labelled out in the partnership sector. So we would be able to look at that and again, with those types of organisations, we would look on a case-by-case basis to see how those partnerships are working and how they're formed. looking at some more that have come through. I think I've missed a couple, so I'll just backtrack on some of the older ones that have been sent. But thank you everyone so far for these questions. This is a great list so far. Question around Yemen. So could we submit applications from Yemen? Are they eligible and would need to cooperate with other NGOs who are eligible with GSMA? We have a list of countries in our FAQs and our terms and conditions where funding is eligible and eligible. Unfortunately, Yemen is not eligible for funding at this stage, but that's something that we can confirm through the FAQs and the terms and conditions. Just looking at a few more questions that are coming through. Question from Mark that's just come through. Could extending access to established information platforms, for example, for people with disabilities, be considered an appropriate innovation for this fund? So yes, that could be. That's something that we could look to support. I think Jenny in her presentation gave the example of two-way communication platforms being extended to reach out to more people. And Mark, your example with people with disabilities. So yes, that's something that we would be able to consider as an appropriate innovation for this fund. Question from Amelia that's come through. If an organisation is a sub-grantee on an application, can that organisation also submit an application as a lead organisation? Amelia, that's something I'm going to look into in a bit more information and update the FAQs based on that, because I need to have a further look into that. It's a great question and thanks for asking that, but that's something that I wouldn't be able to give a kind of full answer on at the moment. So that's something that we'll add to our FAQs. We'll make special note of that to be added. Thank you. I believe that's most of the questions being asked. I know that there were a lot around match funding, but I will make sure that those questions are added on the FAQ page. There is a fair amount of information already available on the FAQ page around match funds that does answer some of these questions, but I will make sure that any of the other questions that haven't been covered in the FAQ section on match are updated. Okay. Can we make a partnership with the emergency telecommunications sector? Yes, that's a partnership that we would, that would be a very appropriate partnership for this fund. So yes, that is something that we would be able to support. Simon, total fund size for this round. So we can expecting applications from anything from £100,000 up to £250,000. Is there a GSMA specific application template which applicants can use while applying for the funding? So funding applications are through the link on our website on the Innovation Fund page. You click through to that link and then the applications are all listed out in several questions. So there's You don't need to download or do anything from that stage. Everything can be filled in online on the application portal. So everyone will have the same questions. Some may differ depending on the type of organisation that you are, but eventually there's a drop down of each, and you'll be able to answer those questions through that application portal.
Hi Guy, can I add on to that answer? Is that okay?
Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah, I think on the application webpage, the landing page, there is also a PDF at the bottom of the pitch questions that you can download to look at offline as well. So we do offer that in an effort to try and make the whole process accessible.
Thanks, Jenny. Question from Dennis. What's the project cycle? So we expect projects to be between 15 months and 18 months in length. So that's the general length of time that we expect the projects to run, 15 to 18 months. What looks like the questions have stopped coming through. As mentioned, there's a couple that are due for follow-up. And Sarah in the chat has shared the link to the FAQs, and this webinar will also, it has been recorded and will be available to watch back on our landing page. There is also, if you have missed the opportunity to ask any questions that you can't answer, we do have an email address that you can reach out to. Again, this can be found on the website. I will put that link into the chat just so everyone is aware, but that is an email address. It is gsmaif@gsma.com, and I'm putting that into the chat. Sarah has done that. Thank you, Sarah. So that's for any queries that haven't been answered, but there are a few that are due follow-up just on the FAQ page. So please do look out over the next few days for the FAQ page to be updated with questions that you've had, particularly on match funding, but also applications from a sub-grantee. Those are the two main topics that I think are due some follow-up. But of course, feel free to email across any questions that you do have to the email address in the chat, and we will look to respond to those in kind of 2 to 3 working days. I think there's one last question that's come through before we wrap up, just around consortium. So as mentioned, we kind of look for that lead organisation to apply from the consortium, but making sure that those who are involved as other partners, that they are included in the application. So we would look for the lead applicant and all of the partnerships within the consortium to be listed within that application phase. There's one final question come through before we wrap up. We are a small consortium of NGOs, academia and technology organisations in Afghanistan. Contribution will be a barrier for us. I think unfortunately Afghanistan is one of the countries on our list where we will not be able to provide funding at this stage. I think that's on the terms and conditions of one of the countries that unfortunately we're not able to provide funding to at this stage. But thank you for the question. Okay, well, we're coming up on the hour now. So just to say a big thank you for everyone for joining the session, and hopefully